Dr.MGR Educational and Research Institute, University, Madhurapol, Chennai. Dr.MGR Educational and Research Institute, University, Madhurapol, Chennai.
A cool good evening to one and all present over here. First and foremost, I start with the beautiful quotes. The art of communication is a language of leadership by James Hunt. This is Adayalampattu. I'm an assistant professor, Department of English. I will be the host for the today's session. We extend a very warm welcome to our eminent chief guest, Ms.A. Catherine Anna Pushpam, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Academic Administrator, B.S. Abdur Rahman, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology, Vandalur, Chennai. I would like to welcome Mr. Dean Dr. S. Manivannan, Adayalampattu, Phase 2 Campus, Dr.MGR Educational Research Institute. I would also welcome Ms. Judy Elizabeth Head, Department in charge, Dr.MGR Educational Research Institute. Last but not least, to welcome all my dear professors, doctorate, faculty members, and other participants for a national level webinar on effective communication in the times of pandemic, organized by Department of English, Dr.MGR Educational Research Institute. We are so glad to have you all here. I kindly request all the participants put on your query on the chat box so that at the end of the session we will clear your all doubts. The feedback and assessment form it will be available in YouTube description box. You are requested to complete and submit the form before today 6 p.m. Later the form will be deactivated. The e-certificate for the participants will send it to the registered email ID within 3 or 4 days. Now I will call upon Ms. Akshaya, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to one and all connected here. The beautiful thing about learning is that no one can take it away from you. By B.B. King. Myself, Akshaya, Assistant Professor in Department of English, Phase 2 Campus. I am deemed it's my privilege to propose the welcome address for this national webinar on effective communication in the times of pandemic. At the outset, I express my gratitude to our beloved Founder Chancellor, Thiru A.C. Shanmugam, and our Honorable President, Engineer A.C.S. Arun Kumar, for providing us the opportunity to conduct the national webinar to improve our knowledge and skills during this pandemic time. I am very happy to welcome Dr. S. Geeta Lakshmi, the First Lady Vice Chancellor of an esteemed university. Her radiant smile and empowering speech has always a great inspiration and motivation for all of us. My hearty welcome to our respected Registrar, Dr. C.B. Painivelu, a kind-hearted person who has a great strength in conducting programs and events of this kind. I am very delighted to welcome our Joint Registrar of Phase 2 Campus, Dr. S. Ramalingam, Dean, Dr. S. Phase 2 Campus, who has been a guiding star and motivating spirit behind the national webinar. I also welcome our Deputy Dean, Dr. V. N. Rajavarman, of his valuable suggestion and encouragement towards this event. I am delighted to welcome the distinguished speaker of the day, Ms.A. Catherine Anna Pushpam, Assistant Professor, Senior Grade, Department of English and Academic Administrator of B.S. Abdur Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology, Vandalur, Chennai. In her busy schedule, she accepted the invitation to share her extensive knowledge on effective communication in the times of pandemic. Through this national webinar, we welcome you, Madam. It's my privilege to welcome the English department faculties of both teaching and non-teaching of this occasion. I am delighted to welcome the professor, research scholar, and students from various countries to gain the knowledge through this session, and I appreciate your presence at this difficult time. I hope this webinar will be an eye-opener for all the participants across the nation. I also welcome all the heads and other faculty of various departments of their valuable presence for this national webinar. Finally, I would like to welcome my department colleagues, organizer of the where the pillars of the national webinar on effective communication in times of pandemic. I hope you have an engaging and enriching session ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Mrs. Julie Elizabeth, Head Department of Incharge, to introduce the chief guest.
The most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. A very good evening to one and all connected here. I feel extremely honored to introduce the chief guest of today's program, Ms.A. Catherine Anna Pushpam, Assistant Professor, Senior Grade, Department of English, Academic Administrator, B.S. Abdur Rahman, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology, Vandalur, Chennai, for the one-day national level webinar on effective communication in the times of pandemic. Ms. Catherine Anna Pushpam has 19 years of experience as an educator. She worked as an English teacher for 5 years in India and in the Republic of Maldives. As she has been a resource person for many schools and colleges and also delivered lectures for students and staff members. She is interested in research activities and her area of research interest is in feminism and gender studies. Ms. Catherine has published in peer-reviewed journals chapters in book in large numbers and co-authored a book titled Interactive English. She has presented many papers in various national and international conferences and seminars. In her credit, she won the first prize in English in the classroom competition organized by Cambridge English Language Assessment for developing exam-based classroom activity for higher education tertiary learners in 2015. On behalf of Dr.MGR Educational and Research Institute University, I wholeheartedly welcome you, madam, for this one-day national level webinar. All the participants are eagerly waiting to hear from you, madam. Your valuable suggestions and ideas regarding effective communication will quench the thirst of the students community. Hope everyone will benefit from your session. Once again, I welcome you, madam.
Chuchu. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was fabulous, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Catherine, ma'am. We are honored. We are very honored by your presence on this occasion, ma'am. I kindly request all the participants put on your queries on the chat box so that at the end of the session we will clear your all doubts. The feedback and assessment form it will be available in YouTube description box. You are requested to submit and complete the form before today 6 p.m. Later the form will be deactivated and the e-certificate for the participation will be to send it to the registered email ID within 3 to 4 days. Now, the most awaited time has arrived. Now, I request Mrs. A. Catherine Anna Pushpam, ma'am. We request you to take over the session, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Vanakkam, and a very good evening to one and all present here. At the outset, I thank the management of Dr.MGR Education and Research Institute, the head of the English department, and the coordinators for giving me this opportunity today. It's so nice to meet you all out here. I especially appreciate the first year students and all the participants of this event for joining with us today. So, the topic effective communication in the times of pandemic. Before I start that, let me share my screen. Hope you can see the screen now. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am, it's visible.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. So, what is communication? Why do we communicate? To begin with, let me tell you that communication is something that you and I have done all our life until now, and you will continue to do so during our entire lifetime. So what am I going to share with you is just to make you aware of a process that you have always done and help you make that process more effective by giving some guidelines to you. Today's session is focused on the first year students, and so my presentation shall be on the rudiments, the basics of communication, and some tips to communicate effectively during this time of pandemic. All right. Being first year students, you have crossed over this stage, right from your infancy to the middle school, high school, and higher secondary school. You have come here. And now your future is focused on this, to be a career person, to be a professional in life, to settle down. You will reach your middle age and then a retired life, all that. And this infancy to your teenage and this adulthood into your old age basically hinges on this stage of your life. And this is the time that you're entering the college too. And this is the time and this is the place where you learn not only your subject, not only your expertise in your computers and other degree courses, but you learn your life skill here. And communication is one of those life skills. And this stage is a preparation for you to proceed well in that life and be successful in your life. To begin with, this basic, we need to cover what is communication. Let's take, for example, that's me, the sender. I'm here and I need to send a message across to you, and it is about communication, today's topic. So I have a lot of messages here, which I think in various ways. How do I take it to you? Do I put a picture? Do I write it in words? Do I just speak? So I'm encoding all these things in my mind and sending that message across to you through a medium. And the medium here happens to be our virtual platform, the YouTube. And the medium also happens to be the PPT that I'm showing you and the language that I'm speaking. And what is happening here is I'm sitting at the one side of the computer and you are all there out on the other side of my screen. And so you decode the message that I send you and receive it. As you receive it, you understand, decode, you understand what I am trying to tell you here. And then, most probably, you're all nodding your head, looking at the screen, probably based on your understanding. Or you might be frowning at the screen, not knowing what I'm talking about. So whatever it is, you're sending some sort of a feedback, whether you have understood or not understood. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see you. That's the only drawback. And so that feedback ultimately reaches me. If not immediately, your feedback that you're going to fill in after the session is over, maybe that. So the entire cycle of communication is just this, that me being the sender or you being a sender sort of encode whatever the idea that you have in your mind, put it as a message, send it through a medium, and take it to the receiver who decodes it, understands it, sends us the feedback, and it comes back to us. And that cycle may be disrupted by something called as a noise. And this noise could be anything right from the beginning, from me, from the sender here, who is not able to connect with you. Probably there is a connectivity issue, so I'm not able to reach you. Or the language I speak, English, is you cannot understand. So again, there is a problem, there is a noise. Or as you're listening to me, there is loud traffic out there, right in front of your house. And so you're not able to listen to me. Or there's just a problem with your mic, with your speaker. So anything and everything could be a noise. And along with this noise, if the sender could send a message and the feedback is received by me, I would say it's a very good communication. Now, this is theoretically speaking. But let me tell you, Before I start talking about what you have already known about communication and other things, let us watch a small video and we'll come back to the discussion on communication. All right. So I hope you saw that it was very brief one, but very quickly it just kept moving. I hope you followed what was happening there in the video. You could see that was a red ball, like a dot or a ball, and that was the message that was being carried through the history of communication. You could see it started with the caveman who had an idea and it was drawn on the caves of the walls through a sign language, which was interpreted, drawn on the caves, walls of the caves. Okay. And then until now, where we have a video conferencing, we have our live streaming. So this is where communication has taken us now. And no matter what, this communication happens through 4 basic skills. We're talking about the general terms, okay? Now, what are those 4 basic skills? We call it as LSRW skills. And when I'm talking about these skills, I'm not particularly talking about English language. Please keep that in mind. Communication is not associated with just one language. It is applicable to all the languages that we speak, that we use in this world. So these 4 skills basically are LSRW skills. And what do I mean by these LSRW skills? Once I have started this, I suppose you can decipher what are the other 3 letters. L stands for listening, which we need to do before we start speaking. And then comes reading, and finally the writing. This is actually the natural way through which we learn a language, through which we learn to communicate using a language. Going back to our own childhood, I don't know whether we all remember when we were 2 years old or 1 year old. So let us not think of us, but we always have some kind of some infant, some child around us in our family, in our neighborhood. And if you have looked or observed that child, you can find that a child never speaks as soon as it is born. You and I never spoke like that. We cried, and it is very important to also know that a child cries. There is a 7 or 8 different ways of crying through which the child communicates. So we'll come to that later on. So for quite some time, almost for 2 years, for 1.5 years, the child never speaks. It makes certain noises. It may laugh, it may cry, but it never actually speaks. And then there's a breaking point, and then it comes one word. It utters a single word, then 2 words. It's only ma and da. It's only a syllable. Not a big word, but it's just syllables, single syllables. And then it progresses to speaking in phrases and then complete sentences. Now, as this happens, have you ever wondered who taught that child to speak so beautifully? Definitely, no mother, no father sat down there teaching the grammar of the language. Nobody said this is present tense form, that is the past tense form. Nobody said subject comes first, verb comes next. We were not taught grammatically, but then a child usually speaks without any flaws. And it happens because the child had been listening for most of its infancy. And once we gain this skill, speaking skill, we forget the skill, we never listen again. Okay? And then the child is sent to school, and that's when reading and writing takes place. That's when we add these two skills to ourselves. And so, if you look at this picture, you can see that listening and reading are inputs for which we get the output as speaking and writing. We have gone through all these skills in our life until now. Especially you students, you have done all this until your 12th standard. So communication is nothing new. Only thing is, they did not tell you that this is how you communicate or this is what you do with the language. And so what is the importance of these 4 skills? Why am I talking about the skills when I'm supposed to be talking about communication? Okay. Look at this picture, this pictogram. It tells us what is important. As I told you, that first 2 years laid the foundation for our lifelong use of language, listening. 45% of the time we need to listen, and we do listen. And 30% is spent in talking, then 16% in reading, and only 9% in writing. But I do not demean writing here. We'll come to that later on because it's the highest skill that someone grabs. Okay. So are we listening? Actually, this is a question we need to ask ourselves. After the 2.5 years age, once we start speaking, I don't think we took time to listen to other people. Now, when I say listening, I don't mean hearing, okay? I know that as students, we have been from morning till evening, we sit in a class and we just listen to the teachers, but I don't know whether it is listening or hearing, because we do hear, we know that there is some noise coming out of the teacher's mouth. You might be hearing me now, you know that I'm speaking something, but are you really listening? That's a question. Listening is understanding. That's the difference. If you're listening to me, you would know what I'm talking about. And so let's start with listening and see how the mastery happens in ways of communicating with others. So, what is communication? I communicate vocally using my voice. I speak. And also through writing. Any kind of written, it could be a book, a newspaper, a print, some sort of a print, an advertisement, a brochure, or a leaflet. It could be anything. Or I might be showing you something that is attractive visually that you can understand. Most of our traffic signals, okay, road signs, logos, charts, maps, all these are visual aids. And then we also use certain non-verbal techniques there. We use our body language, we use our gestures, we use our voice, in the sense, the tone and pitch of the voice, to make the message reach the audience or the receiver or the listener. So this is basically what communication is all about. If you have understood this, it means that all these that you have learned in your school, all those skills that you have learned in your school, maybe you would have thought of Tamil and English as just a language that you need to read your notes, write and score your marks and leave. No, that language has been used for giving you the knowledge that you have learned in all your other subjects. Let me just very quickly, very briefly talk to you about non-verbal communication, because that becomes a major part of our communication. The most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said, said Peter Drucker, a management consultant and an educator. Now, how do you hear what is not being said? Does that mean that we are just over-imagining things? No, it is not that. But what is said and what is not said is mostly made known to people through our body language. And what do I mean by body language here? Are these. Through my facial expression, how I look at you, whether I smile at you, whether I frown at you, whether I always have a very stiff, angry face with you. And through the eye contact that I make. Even now, I'm looking at the screen, hoping to see beyond my screen those who are watching this live stream. I'm trying to make an eye contact with you, hoping to see you through the lenses here. And with the posture, how do I stand, sit? How do I walk around? People notice all these things. They keep noticing you through the gestures that we make. People can understand whether we are nervous, whether we are confident. So all these aspects put together becomes the body language. And what isn't being said is mostly observed through our body language. Now, let me come to the second half of the session, that is our pandemic times. Now, when I talk about pandemic times, what is the picture that you get in your mind? Maybe this? Yes, this is how I think we all felt a few days back. Right now, it is in our unlocked stage, so people are coming out, people are moving out, students are asked to come to colleges, return to the normalcy. But isn't this the picture that we get when we think of pandemic times? And usually, if you think of this picture and you think of this word pandemic, what are the words that come to your mind? Fear of disease, of course, because it's the first time that we have seen such a pandemic in our lifetime. So that fear is there, yes. Isolation and loneliness, because you know how we felt locked up inside the house and inside the four walls for the first 2 or 3 months. We were isolated, and worse for those people who tested positive there. They were just kept in a separate room. Nobody went near them. So that loneliness, the isolation, that is another word that comes to my mind. It may also come to your mind. Insecurities about life. Whether will I live to see another day? That was an insecurity. I'm not going to work. What will I do for tomorrow? There was financial insecurity. All sorts of insecurities. And of course, there was discrimination. A person tested COVID was never accepted as a normal person after that. People were afraid to go near that person. There was discrimination. And of course, there were concerns, a lot of concerns. What would happen to the future? It's not just about the individual, the concern for what would happen to the economy of the country. What would happen to the economy of the world? Will the world end? Is it the final days? Is the last day of judgment coming? So things like that. So pandemic really brought out all the negativity in us. I think you would agree with me in this line. But then, is it really a setback for all of us? Or is it really a step forward for us? Now, thinking back of all these 10 months, do you think you were just sitting at home? Do you think you were just biting your nails, not knowing what to do? Maybe we had such a phase, but very short phase, or maybe for a few days, a few weeks, but then humankind bounced back. There were a lot of regular activities that were taking place. People were working from home. Classes were going on from home. Inside those four walls, students were attending classes, teachers were taking classes, giving them assignments, exams were being conducted, results have been published. And somewhere around the world, there are so many softwares that have come now through which we are live streaming, through which we are taking online classes and meetings, through which all your post materials are being posted. And also those people, the nurses and doctors who were the frontline fighters, they were also there. But sitting at home, did we all not do all these things? Wasn't there some kind of a regularity in it? So I would say that it was a step forward. So what really happened during pandemic? If we think all those regular activities were carried out, don't you think communication has taken place? Of course, there was communication, and that communication just took a new phase, just had a new facade. That is all. So communication, if you look at students all over the world, some may look like this, some may look like this. There are students who just took it in their stride and said, okay, let me sit at home, relax, but at the same time, let me learn something. There are so many ways to learn a lot of things. And there, they sat maybe with a laptop, maybe with a mobile phone, maybe with a tablet. Or if nothing, there were people who were just reading books and got in touch with their reading skills. And there is also a set of students who found everything so confusing. They did not know what to do. They felt so down that looking at the laptop also made them cry. So which category do we fall into? That is something that we need to think. So people may jokingly say these things. Most heard words in the year 2020. Am I audible? Mute or unmute your mic. Can you see the screen? Unable to join. I think even when I joined, when I started presenting my screen, I just asked you, can you see the screen? Is my screen visible? So these are some words that we have been making use of. Agreed, yes. But jokes apart, isn't it really true that these words show that I have made a commitment to reach to you? Any speaker, whoever has said, am I audible, has made a commitment to make himself or herself heard by the audience, to communicate with the other people. Can you see the screen? Again, it's the same thing. So these words show that the humankind has very swiftly adapted to a new means of communication. That is all. So pandemic times did not actually put us backward. It did not push us back. It has just pulled us forward. It has shown us different ways to communicate. It need not be a classroom. It need not be inside of four walls that a teacher can teach the students. And while that was happening, the traditional way of classrooms were happening, people were saying, why should I ever have to come to class? Why can't I sit at home and learn? Everything is available online. And here it is, available online, but yet students have not yet acquired all the knowledge. So this pandemic has shown us the way that classrooms are necessary, and at the same time, classrooms are not confined to the four walls. And the world is always reaching out to communicate to the universe, showing that humankind will not fail and cannot be defeated. Okay, so how do we communicate? Now, what I'm going to tell you is nothing new. I'm going to tell very simple things, but only in my own point of view, that's all. What I'm going to bring your attention to is how you would become a better communicator, and I'm categorizing into two different things. One, these two go together: communicate with oneself, with yourself, and communicate with others. And the other way of communication is at the personal level and at the professional level. So this communication you have been doing, it's not that after attending only this webinar only you're going to communicate well. No, you have been doing so far very well. It's there, that's why you are here. You have been communicated about this webinar. You are here because you have read that has been decoded by you, right? So what I'm going to talk to you is only to make you aware of something that has been always in your subconscious mind. So communicate with oneself, you may call it as intrapersonal communication because that's also another definition there about that. But before I show you what is there in the screen, I would also like to say that communication, this pandemic has pushed every individual to take the obligation and responsibility of communicating on oneself. Because because of social distancing and other things, we do not allow the other person to come inside our circle. And so it is up to me. If I want to communicate, I have to reach out and say that. Okay? So the obligation and the responsibility on the owners of communication is with ourselves. It's up to the individual to initiate a communication or to be a part of a communication by contributing to it. When I say that, in case of the students, first year students, maybe you have missed out on all those online learning, the fun of online learning and other things where even the KG students have are exceeding you now. Okay, but in case of the students, look at this picture. This is a meme that I found very funny. Yes, online class starts at 10. So me waking up at 9:59 a.m. Yes, sir. Who bothers? Nobody. It's me, my parents at home. Does the sir know, or does the teacher know whether I'm up at 9:59 or 5:59? Nobody knows. So once I log in, that's enough, right? Yes, you can attend a class like this. You can attend a class with your night dress on. You can attend a class having your bed coffee. You can do anything. But only thing is, did that make you feel right? When you communicate with yourselves, did you know or did you feel happy about it? I can bet that doing this might have been relaxing for some time, but it wouldn't have taken you throughout the day. Try doing that for one full day. Sit in your night dress, lie down on the bed and keep attending the class. I can tell you that you won't be successful in crossing that one day, that 12 hours time limit. But on the other hand, if you wake up, you have a regular schedule, you have a routine, you dress up well, you prepare. I know it is only an online class, but then I sit at least properly, formally dressed. That makes a lot of difference. So how is that related to communication? If you think, let me tell you, you communicate with yourself. That is more important. During the pandemic times when you don't have other people to talk to, it is you that matters more. Because your mind is your master. And unless you feel good, you're not going to communicate very well with anybody else. Okay? So, having an intrapersonal communication helps in making you a better person. Only if you are a better person, you would be able to communicate better with other people. You have to be positive. Yes, it's only my online class. Why don't I lie down and attend? No. Be positive. It is an online class. I'm going to learn something new today. It's a new day. Being positive creates a lot of energy in you. Organize yourself. Keep your mind focused on tasks instead of having all those negative thoughts. When we talk about the pandemic, all those negative thoughts creep in. So in order to stay away from such negative thoughts, keep your mind focused on the task that is given to you as students. And be properly groomed is something that I would really like you to do. Now, moving on to the other. Once you have taken care of yourself, how do you communicate with others? The best way to tell that you communicate with others, that you give them importance, is by listening to them. By listening to them carefully. And I think I have already told you the difference between hearing and listening. So be it your teachers or friends or colleagues, anybody online meeting or in a class, it's the only way to communicate. Okay, online platform is the norm of the day, so you need to accept that and move on with that. And so try to make the best out of it. Start listening. There's a lot of chances to be distracted more at home, right? So you need to focus on the task there. There is something going on. Instead of hearing, please listen. And once you listen, you need to respond. Right now, I know we are live streaming, and so you're not able to interact with me, but I would love to hear from you a yes or a no or some questions. So in an online class, when it is a smaller gathering, it is really appropriate. It would be appropriate if you would respond to the teacher or the speaker there, saying yes, no, mute and unmute. You can do that. And that shows how involved you are with the class. And that also communicates to the speaker that yes, I have a listener there who is really listening to me and I get my feedback, and that is enough for me to move on. Also, speak clearly. When you speak, don't be in a hurry to speak. Speak clearly, speak audibly. And this one is very, very important. Ask questions. Clarify your doubts. Is it wrong? Some people have this notion that asking question is kind of pestering. No. Asking question is certainly not pestering. And while you clarify your doubts, there are so many other people who would also have the same doubts, and they would be clarified of their doubts at that time. And asking questions also tells the other person that you are interested. Now, I'm just leaving out the communication at the personal level because we have already covered with oneself and the personal circle of people. I think you know how to reach them. But this covers that too. Communication in the professional context. Be punctual. Now, where are you going to? And I'm asking you to be punctual. You're going for an online meeting. You're going for an online class. So it doesn't hurt to be punctual, and especially if you are going to be the host, the speaker, then I would say you join at least 5-10 minutes early. And that doesn't mean as a student you can join late, because as you join late, there is an interruption in the flow of communication that happens. And the next most important thing during the pandemic is to get to know your online platform. Now, online platform could be your Google Meet, it could be your Zoom, it could be your WebEx, it could be your Microsoft Teams, or it could be anything that you're using. But before you start using it, get to know about it, what you're doing with it, how to handle that. How do you mute, unmute yourself? How do you switch on and off your video camera? How do you present? Are you scribbling there? So all these things you need to understand. Now, why should you do all these things? It is only to show. It is the way that you communicate, because body language is all hidden here. Nobody can see your gestures. Nobody can see your facial expression. And most often we cannot even hear your voice, because most of the students come to the class silently. They just leave the class silently. So there is no way to feel your presence. But when you do this, the teacher feels your presence. The feeling of the presence is a way of communicating with the speaker. And I know initially when these online meetings and online conferences started, there was chaos, utter chaos. People did not know how to mute themselves. People were walking around with those cameras on. And so you could see the entire family being introduced to the audience here. So it did happen, but we have come very far from there where we started there. So as starters, as beginners to your online platforms and other things, please learn all these things to mute and unmute whenever necessary. And most importantly, WhatsApp messages and other messages that you may send. Not everybody uses a laptop or a computer system. So even emails are being typed out in the mobile phone, and we do have autocorrect text. And I think we need to be very careful with what we are typing it out there. Sometimes, yes, maybe the inner thoughts do come as autocorrect text, I don't know. But this is something that we have to be very, very careful about, especially when it becomes a professional communication. And so I reiterate this point, clarify whenever you have doubt. But above all, what is more important is people should understand that technology, all these technical gadgets that we are using, takes time to work. And so this is not as fast as we are, not as fast as our human brain functions. And so once you get to know the platform, you just wait very patiently for you to connect with the link that is being given, or for the screen to be visible on your screen, the shared screen to be visible on your screen, or for the audio to reach you, whatever it is, you need to have patience. You need to get to know the technical aspects a little bit more. Now, what is important? Having talked about communication at a personal level, at a professional level, and other things, what is really important? These three aspects: words, voice, and body language. And I told you, body language is almost hidden now. I'm not able to see you at all. And so, where do I assess you with your body language? There's no way. But the words that I speak and the voice that I make use of to speak those words matter a lot. I'm going to show you a small video once again about the power of words. Once we watch this, we'll come back to our discussion. That would change the world around you and the world within you. And I definitely need to mention Kambar here. Those people who do not know Tamil, please excuse me here. Contain Sidaye is a word that is shown as an example for best communication. Why couldn't have Kambar written Sidaye Contain? Why did he start with Kandanan? Because even that fraction of a second grief should not be given to Rama. Hanuman said, Contain Sidaye. And this is exactly what is needed with us. When we are framing words, when you are encoding those messages in your mind, think of delivering it in the best way possible. Think of all the consequences that would arise out of the words that we speak. And Kambaramayanam is the best example for that. Contain Sidaye. And also remember, when we use words, those words spoken cannot be taken back. And when I talk about positive connotation, it's also a kind of a psyche there involved, psychology involved there. When you say the glass is half full or half empty, it's up to you. Also important, when words are not spoken, the silence also conveys certain meanings. There is communication taking place in silence. And most importantly, speak only if you have something to say. Don't speak because you have to say something. It really doesn't add, it doesn't contribute to our credit. And when we speak of words, we have to also speak about the tone, because it plays a major role there. Because it's the tone, it's not the word that gives away your emotions. You can say, I'm happy. You can say, I'm happy. So how do you say that? It is, if the word would convey the meaning, but then everybody would be a robot. I can say, I'm happy, I'm hungry, I'm sad. You can say that. But no, we humans are not used to that. We use tones to add to the life of those words. And so tone gives away your emotions. So be very cautious when you speak. And if you're angry, don't speak at all. That's what people say. Smile when you speak, even on the phone or a video call. Who is going to see you? You may think. People see with the third eye there. As I told you, we are looking for, or we are trying to hear, as Peter Drucker says, trying to hear to something that is not being said. And what I hear is a smile over the phone. And many things can be achieved by the use of your tone, and it is not because of the words. Please keep that in mind and see whether your tone matches the word that you speak. So, as a good communication, a takeaway of the communication, I would like to highlight these things. What is needed for a good communication? The information that you speak. Who needs to know what? You need to know about that when you speak. If you're talking to this teacher there, then you need to know, does the teacher need to know that? If I'm talking to the students, I need to ask myself, should the students know this? And then I start with my information. And I confirm whether I have enough relevant information for the right people that I'm going to share with. And timeliness, when do I deliver that? Should I do it now? Should I do it later on? A message that is delivered too late comes of no use at all to people. And about the accuracy, a wrong message can be dangerous than no message at all. So keep that in mind. And coordinating things, keep others informed. So online classes, online meetings, do you inform people beforehand? When do you inform them? I have a meeting at 10 o'clock, 9:55. I sent a message. What kind of a communication have I made? So that communicates to the other people that I'm not serious enough about my job. I do not value your time. See? So there are lots of meanings. Communication is not just speaking alone. A lot of things communicate. And so all these things put together makes it a good communication. Now, we have talked a lot about communication. Let us see what would happen if we go wrong in that communication, as a miscommunication. All right. A couple, they decided to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary. And they wanted to do it in a very special way. So they thought they would go back to the hotel in Florida where they stayed during their honeymoon soon after their wedding. So right now they are busy people and they had different schedules. And so they had to go at different times. So the husband said, okay, I'll leave first and you can join with me later on. And so he went off to Florida. He reached the same hotel where they had stayed, because they had already pre-booked it, and so he got the same room, in fact. And when he went there, he found computers there in the room itself, because technology is upgrading, and so everywhere it's being upgraded. So the hotel has even installed computers inside the rooms for the personal use too. So the husband was very, very happy, and he said, why don't I send a mail instead of calling my wife? And so he sits down there, he types out the message and sends it. The only problem is he makes an error there when he types out his wife's mail ID. Okay. Now, in another part of the same country, there is a widowed woman. She recently lost her husband. She had just buried him and she came home. Okay. And what happened is, she thought, maybe I have missed out all those information and other things from other people. So let me catch up with those things. Many friends would have called. And so she opened her email. She screamed and she fainted. The son came running into the room and he saw the mother unconscious, and he looked at the screen that was left open on the table, and he saw this. My loving wife, I have arrived. I know you're surprised to hear from me. They have computers here now and you're allowed to send emails to your loved ones. I have just arrived and have been checked in. I have seen that everything has been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you then. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine was. Postscript, sure is freaking hot down here. And down there could be hell. Who knows? And all this miscommunication just because he missed to type out a letter in the email ID. So be very careful because we are using a lot of technology right now to communicate. Are we using it in the right way? We have to check, double check, triple check, even if it is necessary. Okay, and one more classic miscommunication scene from the movie Rush Hour. I hope you have all watched that movie beforehand. Let me play it for you. So that is a classical example because a lot of cultural differences do crop in our communication. I do not know how many people are sitting there around the world meeting on the same platform, having the same meeting. If we do not understand the cultural differences, if we do not understand the meanings that are conveyed through those words, we do miss out a lot there. Okay, so what is the best way to improve our communication skills? I have just one word to say: practice, practice, practice. I have put it thrice, it is so many other times too. You need to practice a lot. Now, how do you practice communication here? Communication works for those who work at it, said John Powell. So unless we start practicing, unless we start communicating with ourselves, communicating with our neighbors, with our near and dear ones, communicating with our colleagues at workplace, at your study place, or wherever it is, we are not going to improve. So your mindset is what would develop your communication skills. You need to have the urge to communicate first. And once you have that urge, you need to seek out the ways to communicate it better. Being aware of different techniques for communicating. Using the technology alone wouldn't help. You understanding the nuances of using the technology is what would make your communication successful. And for the students, especially here, as we are using technology, you are staying at home and learning through online modes. There are so many other websites and apps that could be helpful for you to develop your communication skills. You can use technology here. A few of these English communication skills by Mob Devs, Miracle Fund Box, British Council apps that are plenty, Real English, 2 Minutes English, Learn English ESL and TOEFL, Grammar Up, Speaking Pearl, and podcasts for listening and understanding. So you have got a lot with technology that you can use. And I hope I have made my presentation very clear for you and I have communicated with you properly and effectively. So if you have any questions, I am ready to take the questions.
Thank you so much, Ma. That was really nice and for giving your valuable insight on the topic, effective communication in the times of pandemic. Now I request Mrs. R. Achia to take over the question and answer session.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful session. Am I audible now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I got the one question from the participants. Can you tell the meaning of what is upward communication?
Upward communication is something that you put across to your superiors. You move your communication upward. So if you are a student, then you communicate with your teachers, with your principal, with your deans and HODs. That is called as the upward communication. Downward communication, if you if you communicate with your subordinates, that would be your downward communication.
Okay, so participants can put your queries in the chat box. So we are getting a nice feedback from the participants.
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope there is no questions as of now. Only one question I have got from the chat box. So
Okay.
thank you, ma'am, for your answering this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And
Thank
I
you
would
so
like to
much,
thank
Akshya ma'am and
everyone.
Catherine ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Now I call upon Dr. P. Hashimi, Associate Professor, Department of English, to present the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me immense delight to meet you all in this platform to take up the wonderful task of proposing the vote of thanks. At the outset, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to your Honorable Founder Chancellor Dr. A.C. Shanmugam and beloved President Engineer A.C.S. Arun Kumar for granting us permission to conduct this national webinar that has proved to be quite a useful one for the academic community of students, teachers, and research scholars. I'm immensely grateful to our distinguished Vice Chancellor, Dr. S. Geeta Lakshmi, and esteemed Registrar, Dr. C.B. Palanivelu, for their constant and ardent support whenever approached. I convey my earnest appreciation to the resource person of today's webinar, Ms. Catherine Anna Pushpam, Assistant Professor, Senior Grade, Department of English, B.S. Abdur Rahman, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology, for delivering such an insightful webinar. I'm sure all the participants connected here would have got a lot to carry from her dynamic presentation today. Thank you, ma'am. I owe my special thanks to the inspiring dignitaries of our campus, our Joint Registrar Dr. S. Ramalingam, Dean Dr. S. Manivannan, and Deputy Dean Dr. V. N. Rajavarman. They have been pillars of tremendous strength and support, not only to the department, but to the campus as a whole. Dear participants who have connected from all over the nation and some parts of the world, thank you for joining us and rendering your enthusiastic support. I am sure this webinar would have been quite a useful one for all of you. Keep supporting us as always, dear participants. I should be immensely grateful to the dedicated organizing team of the Department of English, Ms.A. Julie Elizabeth, head in charge, and assistant professors Ms. R. Akshya and Mrs. Jaymada. I'm also thankful to Mr. Ganesh Babu of CS Department for his support. Last but not the least, I thank all department HODs, staff members, and students for rendering their wholehearted support and cooperation. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The feedback from assessment form, it will be available in YouTube description box. You are requested to complete and submit the feedback form before 6 p.m. Later, the form will be deactivated. The e-certificate for the participants will be sent to the registered email ID within 3 days. At this pleasure moment, I would like to request Mrs. R. Akshya to display the appreciation certificate to us. Thank you, Akshay. We have come to an end of the program. I hope everyone has benefited. Until then, we will meet you in the next program. Don't forget to submit the feedback form and subscribe our YouTube channel, Dr. MGR University PhD, to be learning for further updates about our programs and videos. Thank you all.